I'm going to be showing you a Marie from the Aristocats. So it's got Marie on the tip of the nail, and the background of the nail is super glittery, very, very pink, and then a pink bow. There's a few different shades of pink in this whole design. I love all the pinks. Obviously, if you look at my channel name, you can see that I am a pink fan. So I hope you guys love this design as much as I do, and don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future videos as well. Bye!
So we're going to begin with an overlay of a glittery pink acrylic in the background. And one thing I want to mention is that I always do my color acrylics, whether they're glitter or anything else, at least typically, in very thin coats. And the reason I do that is because typically speaking, color acrylic is more expensive than clear. Also, clear is stronger. So sometimes that's not as big a deal for the strength element, but the price element is always something that I like to keep in mind because you typically will buy color acrylics in smaller jars than clear acrylic. I buy my clear acrylic in like this huge tub and then I put it into a smaller jar to use it from. So my clear acrylic per application is way less expensive because I do buy it in bulk. If that is something that you can do and that you do, using that clear acrylic is going to make all your colors go way further and just make it so the whole thing is a little bit cheaper. And you know, I don't know for anybody else, but I know for me, I try to keep my color acrylics. I'd rather not have to repurchase my color acrylic. I'd rather, if I have some money to spend on colors, to get a different one. So if you make them go a little farther, it just gives you some more options and keeps everything a little easier. So that is one thing that I sometimes like to mention just in case nobody's ever thought of it from that perspective before. So now in a nail form backing with white acrylic, we're going to be sculpting our Marie. So we have her face shape and then her body. And I do want to mention that I did this nail a very long time ago. Okay, I say a very long time ago, like it was years. No, like 3-4 months ago. And it was the first time I'd ever used my 3D monomer from Coupa. And I was not prepared for how fast it would set up. And so the whole time I was working on this, things just went a little quicker than I was expecting them to. So there was a few lines that I wasn't totally happy with. That being said, I just want to mention that whole 3D monomer business because that monomer is phenomenal. And if you want to hear me if you want to hear me wax on poetically about that, see that eyeball, I was like, nope, that thing is just not working for me. If you want to hear me wax on poetically about that 3D monomer from Coupa, check out my giraffe video that I uploaded a couple weeks ago because I talk a lot about that monomer because by that point I'd gotten used to it and I fell in love like head over heels. I can't say enough good things about it. So if you're in the market for a new monomer and you love to do 3D work, definitely think about that particular product because it is like the best thing I've ever used in my life. So we're going to sculpt as much detail into our Marie as possible. So I've got her little face shapes. We've got eyes sculpted in. We have her cheeks. She's got very full cheeks, which are just so cute. And then she's got her little snout and her chin. And then we're going to be sculpting her ears. And everything about Marie is very, very soft and very cute. And just, she's like the epitome of white fluffy cat. And, you know, she just got that cute kitten vibe going all over the place. So we've got her ears then too, that we're going to be sculpting in with the white acrylic. And Marie does have some pink in her ears, and to make room for that, just add a little indent inside her ears to give them a little bit more space when that time comes. And then I'm going to add even one more ridge to the top portion of each ear to give them just a little bit more shape. Blend all that in as best as you can. Then you're also going to need to add her hair. And so when you're doing all of these different shapes with your Marie, you'll notice that the things that you're sculpting on top of acrylic that's already there when you're working on a nail form backing are not going to spread out as much as what you're doing that's on the nail form backing since that is such a slippery surface. So I like to try. I mean, it's a lot of thought. There's a lot of things to consider when you're working with acrylic like this, but I like to try to make my acrylic a little bit more stiff when I'm placing it on a nail form backing versus when I'm just putting it on top of the acrylic that's already there. So if you want to have one more thing to think about when you're working, that would be one to consider. With a pinkish color, you're going to want to add the bow going around her neck. And then after you have that done, add that little bit of the color going around her little tuft of hair on top of her head too with the bow. And now we get to do some of her details on her body. So at the moment, her body just kind of looks like a lima bean, but we need to add some more detail to that. So we're going to start out with the back leg that isn't showing very much because it's kind of behind her. And then after you have that done, then I would go in with her hip of the leg that would be in front. And then after you have that hip done, then you can kind of decide what you want to do. You can either do either of her front legs or her tail or her little paw. You can just kind of pick, but I would start by doing those two leg pieces first because they aren't as in front as some of the other things. And so I'm going to be adding that shoulder for her arm that is closest to the viewer. And that goes up over, because she's kind of got like she's shrugging a little bit. So that shoulder goes up and over the ribbon of her bow that wraps around her neck. And then that paw comes down. And then just continue building up these lines. Like I said, I'm working with a monomer that I hadn't used before. And when you're working with a fast setting monomer, one thing is that you want to try to do everything as quickly and as efficiently as possible, instead of my technique of before this, I usually just sort of took my sweet time with everything. But in this particular case, you don't have that luxury. And sometimes that's a good thing if once you kind of get used to it. And if you're somebody that's new to working with acrylic, I wouldn't recommend going straight for that fast set 3D monomer from Coupa. I would go with, they have an odorless, which I personally have never tried, so I can't attest to how it works myself. But odorless monomers set slower. And the reason for that is they still set the same amount of, or they still have the same amount of scent. If you want to think about it as scent, they still have the same amount, but it seems like it's less because it gets released into the air at a slower rate. And when it gets released into the air at a slower rate, it sets slower, because it's when the acrylic is setting, it's just the way that they work. And so they set slower. So if you want to use something that's a slower set, you can use odorless. And then they have, Coupa also has a traditional monomer, which is what I use for sculpting my nails that I sculpt the bases and what I like use on my natural nails. And then they have this 3D one. So if you are in the market for monomers, I've been happy with everything that I've used from them. On a nail from backing, we're now going to be sculpting our little bow. So we're going to do 2 petal shapes of the same color that we used for Marie's bow that's around her neck. So there's the first one. Here's the second one. And because I'm using that fast setting 3D monomer, I don't really even have to wait between finishing sculpting the shape and folding it in half. I pretty much can just go right for it, which was really nice. That was a happy surprise that there wasn't any hurry up and wait type of a process. It was just move, move, move. So then you want to put the 2 sides of the bow together and finish them off with a little bit more acrylic in the middle. And then you're going to glue Marie to the tip of the nail. And then after she's nice and secured and she's not going to wiggle around too much because the glue is set up, then you're going to glue the bow near the cuticle area. And I just love the oversized bow look. I think it is perfect for Marie. And then after you have that, you're going to fill in behind her with some clear acrylic to make sure that it is nice and strong. And if you're interested in some really in-depth instructional kind of tutorial, I did a live class on making 3D bows that really goes in depth on everything about making the bows specifically. So if you would like to see that, I will put a link to that video in the description box as well. So check for that too. After we have everything kind of secured in place with that clear acrylic so it's not going anywhere, we're going to be adding details to our bow and to Marie with acrylic paint. With a burgundy color, I'm going to be adding the outlines and the details to both of the bows that are on Marie and to the one that's on the nail. And then I'm going to also use that same kind of burgundy color to add some details to Marie as well in her ears and on her nose. And then to start filling in some of the details on her fur. Since her fur is white, we could, but I wouldn't recommend going straight to black because black will just look too harsh on her. And everything about her is cute and soft and cuddly and sweet. And so go to gray. Use a light to medium color of gray to do all of her outlines. And you'll find that everything about it just looks a little bit simpler and a little softer. Plus, when you do a more subdued outline, instead of going straight to a dark color, you'll find that you have a little bit more wiggle room as far as the quality of your outlining goes. You can do things a little bit more, I don't want to say sloppy, but a little bit more hasty with it because it's not going to look as, I don't know, the black acrylic paint on top of white acrylic to do outlines. You have to be precise. You have to make sure that those outlines look perfect. Otherwise they look really pretty sloppy and not that great. So just keep that in mind. And then we're going to add some blue into her eyes with a very nice sky blue. And then you are going to go through and you will need to add some black paint. I did dilute mine to make it a little easier to work with. And we're going to be adding the upper line of her lash line with that black as well as her eyebrows. And then just add any lines you feel like you need to intensify with black paint if there are any. And you're also going to need to add her pupils too with black. Just do all of those eye outlines. I like to make sure that the eyes are the most intense feature on the face. So those black outlines really help with that. Add some whiskers on her. And then we're going to be adding a little bit more glitz and glam to the background of this nail. So apply some jewelry gel over it and then apply a layer of gel top coat over the jewelry gel prior to curing. And before you cure still, you're going to start pressing in those crystals or rhinestones, studs, whatever it is that you want to use to make this a little bit more glamorous. And they will sink into the jewelry gel, and that jewelry gel will grip them so that they aren't going anywhere. And then once all of those are pressed in and you're happy with the placement and the amount of glitziness that is in the background, go ahead and cure, and then apply a layer of matte gel top coat, actually not gel, just matte top coat over the 3D art, and this nail is done. I hope you guys love this one as much as I do. I am a sucker for 3D bows. I have always just been a huge fan of them, so I hope you guys love them too. And if you want to see any of those videos that I mentioned, like I said, I will put them links in the description box below. So check that out, and I will see you next time. Bye!